Hi, Baldy parents. My name is Chris Gallagher, and I am the math teacher and advisor for Section 811, and I'm the math teacher for Sections 809 and 810 as well. I'm so glad to be able to introduce you to the math program this year in terms of like how I run the class and what it will look like virtually to give you a better understanding of what your students are going through every day. So I am going to present a presentation so that you can follow along. And I will be sharing this on Class Dojo after back to school night, which we are saying is Thursday night, the 24th. So after Baldy posts the video with everything, I will share the presentation. So you do not need to feel the need to write anything down or anything like that. So again, I'm Chris Gallagher, sections 809, 810, and 811 for math. The best way to communicate with me is through email. I have been responding through Class Dojo at times, but I don't always log into Class Dojo to see that I have messages. So if you have something urgent that you want to let me know or ask or anything like that, any concerns that you want to bring to my attention, it's best to email me because I do check email every day, multiple times a day usually. So that is my email, cmgallagher@philasd.org. We will be relying on Google Classroom a lot this year in order to run our class. So I do ask that if you are not already a member of the Google Classroom for Math that you join. So all you need to do is open up Google Classroom and then you would type in the code that's associated with your child's section. So if you're not sure of their section, they are well aware of which section they are. And then you would just type in this code and it would add you to the class and you would start receiving, if you set it up for notifications, you would start receiving notifications for announcements, assignments, and due dates. If you don't set it up for notifications, then you would just be able to log in and you would have access to the information, to the same exact information your child sees in terms of when an assignment is posted, when there's an announcement, impending due dates that are coming up, because that usually shows right on the side when they have an assignment that's due and when it's due. So it would allow you to be able to monitor. It would also show you when you log in if they are missing any work. So it would allow you to be able to closely monitor their progress, especially before things get graded and input into our parent portal, Infinite Campus. So that is the communication. Math curriculum. This is just at a glance for the year. We do use the Common Core standards for math. These are the topics covered in 8th grade. So right now we are working on multi-step equations, and this is the order we go in typically. I haven't looked at the full year to see if we're following the same order, but this has been the order the past 3 years. So we're going to go down this column first, most likely, and then over to this column. So multi-step equations is where we are right now. Actually, I've been reviewing basic equations, combining like terms and distributive property, which are actually 6th and 7th grade topics, especially with the students being off so long last year. I wanted to make sure that they remembered how to do those things before we start multi-step equations, to make sure they have the foundation that they need to be successful. So those are our topics. Learning math in the virtual world. So we have divided our block into 2 portions. We have live time and flex time. Live time just means that your child is logged in for that class at that moment with the teacher and they're receiving live instruction. So it would be set up very much like I'm doing right now through a Google Meet or a Zoom. 60 minutes on full days is what is required for our math block. So normally we see the students for 90 minutes in school. We're asking them to be logged in for 60 minutes. And then on half days, they only have a 45-minute period, so they are logged in live for the entire 45 minutes. Attendance is important. It's recorded every day. We are logging it into the system just like we would if we were in school. So if students show up late to class, they are being marked late. Obviously, I usually give a 3 to 5 minute window before I actually consider them late, especially on half days. Sometimes they're coming directly from another class. And then on the full days, sometimes kids, they just have issues logging in, Wi-Fi is not working, there are, technical difficulties. So I do give a little bit of a grace period for every class period that I'm taking attendance for, but they really shouldn't be more than 5 minutes late at the very maximum. Active participation is expected. So please encourage your child to take ownership over their learning by asking questions and actively participating in class every day. We would love to see their cameras turned on so that we can see that they're actually physically sitting there. I've had my moments where I have said, "So and so, are you here?" because they're not responding, and the thought that maybe they are logging in and walking away and going to do something else has me a little concerned, because then they're missing the important education that they need. And we all know how important it is. And math is foundational and comprehensive. It builds, one topic leads to the next, and it just keeps building on each other. So once you fall behind or you don't understand something, it makes it that much harder for them to catch up. So please, if you can encourage them to put their cameras on, that would be great. But you can also just check in with them daily. I know many of you probably are working during the day, so you're not able to stand over top of them and watch, which is understandable. They're in 8th grade. They should not need that. So if you can just check in and see, ask them what they learned in math. Maybe have them show you their notebook. They have a digital notebook. And if they know that you're checking in with them, then it might hold them accountable to make sure that they are paying attention and actively participating in class. So live time for the way I've structured the class will involve a do now, guided notes, modeled and guided examples, and then independent or group practice time. So that's pretty much the flow of the class. And then the last 30 minutes of every class on full days is flex time. During that time, I have assignments that are ongoing that students are working on. So far, it has been Google Classroom assignments in the form of Google Slides or Google Forms, and an Envision assignment that was online. So if you have not picked up their textbook, I believe there's still time to do that. The books are available. We have them at Baldy. If you didn't get a chance to do it, you can email me and I can let you know when there will be a chance to pick up the books, because as the year progresses, we will be working in the book at times. I have not started this yet, but we will be doing Imagine Math Pathways. So if you've been at Baldy the past 2 years, I'm sure that your child has been doing Imagine Math. So Imagine Math Pathways will be set up. I try to make a pathway that's directly related to either what I've already taught or what I'm currently teaching. So I tell them not to do the general 8th grade pathway, which is determined for them by Imagine Math and just goes in whatever order Imagine Math puts it in. I'd rather them work on a specific pathway related to my topic so that I know that they've already been exposed to it. Now, if they move quickly through it, they may get to a section in that pathway that I haven't yet gotten to in class, but at least it's the same topic and it doesn't look like a foreign language to them. So that will be coming soon. Regarding materials and resources, we are using the Pearson Envision series. There are 2 books for 8th grade, volumes 1 and 2, much like 6th and 7th grade. My class has guided notes, so the students are provided with a digital note taker online for every lesson, and they can type in the things that I'm typing in. And then I do tell them that for the math examples that they can do that in a regular notebook. They don't have to do it online or in my note taker. They can, it's available. I have text boxes in there that they can input it in, and I show them how I would do that. But if they'd rather do that part in a regular notebook, I'm totally fine with that, as long as they have it somewhere. The digital note taker is more of a way for me to give them the information I would have provided them on a handout in class to make sure that they have it. I do not want to spend 60 minutes, goes very quickly. I do not want to spend time on waiting for them to copy things. So I provide them with the majority of the information so that they can just fill in blanks. And then the class is structured so that it's outlining the steps to solve problems. I do some examples. Usually I model how to do it. And then they get practice time, usually in breakout rooms or online whiteboards. They will need, obviously, a Chromebook or a computer of some sort or a device to allow them access to the internet. And then for my class, they'll also need a pencil, eraser, and a ruler. We haven't needed a ruler yet, but we do a lot of graphing in 8th grade. So our next unit, actually after multi-step equations, they will need a ruler. And then obviously a math notebook. I'd prefer them to get a graphing notebook if you haven't already gotten their supplies, because we do a lot of graphing. It will make it easier for them to do examples in their notebook. But if they don't have a graphing notebook, it's fine. I would just pick up maybe a pack of graph paper so that they have it on hand for when we get to the graphing components. And in terms of a calculator, it is free online. You do not need to buy a calculator. If students have a scientific calculator from last year that they used for 6th and 7th grade, because I know many of our students usually had their own, they are free to use that for the majority of what we will do this year. We will also have access to a graphing calculator. In school, we would be using we have a class set that we allow the students usually to use. But obviously, we can't do that now. But at desmos.com, there is a free calculator. There's a scientific one, so it allows them to input fractions. And then there's also a graphing calculator that will allow them to graph our equations when we get to that part of the eighth grade curriculum. So do not feel the need to buy a graphing calculator. They can cost anywhere from $80 to $140. It's not needed. The students can do it right online for free. There's no charge for it. And I link right now I'm linking the scientific calculator into their notebook, their digital notebook, to make it easier for them to access. And when we get to graphing, I will also include a link to the graphing calculator, so it'll take them straight to it. So you do not need to purchase a calculator if they don't already have one. The grading policy, this was our grading policy last year, and this is what is currently loaded into our student information system, where our grade book basically. So right now, I've basically input in here what I see fitting in from virtual learning, how I seeing it fit into our current grading policy. There is a chance that the district may change the grading policy to align more with the virtual learning setting that we are in, but we haven't received information on that yet, so this is how we'll be starting. Tests and quizzes are 40%, classwork and participation is 30%. That will include live class participation, so I have rubrics and participation cards that I'll go over later in the presentation, and then it also will include the completion of their flex time work and notebook checks. And notebook checks, they'll usually have like a Google form that they have to answer questions based on certain problems or certain parts of the notes to make sure that they completed it and they filled it in, to hold them accountable, to make sure I'm not doing all this and then they're not filling it in on their end, because if they're not filling it in, it's not going to help them at all. Projects and presentations are 20%. So I do some projects. We've had one so far this year. I also include open-ended responses in that category. I find that it helps the student more than hurts them, especially if they are somebody that does not follow through or keep up with projects. If they have a 0 on a project, that's 20 points off their grade if there's only one project assigned. If I put the open-ended in there, it's normally done in class, so everybody turns it in. It may look different this year, but usually that helps offset the grade, especially if they either didn't do well on the project or they didn't do the project at all. And homework is 10%. And when we get back to the in-person setting, at that time, I will assign it weekly via Google Classroom. I'm not assigning homework at this moment. As far as I'm concerned, flex time is considered their homework. They have flex time work, and there will be times that spills over outside the school day. At that time, they should make sure it gets finished by the due date. But I did not want to confuse them and have flex time work in classwork and also have it in homework. So for right now, homework will not count for them or against them. It will just be a blank category. Participation. So there are 3 types of participation, 2 types which will be graded. The first type obviously is voluntary. So when students volunteer during the notes and classwork, they just get called on, and I'm making a mental note of students that participate actively and often. So it tends to be the same students, unfortunately. So I have input these options to try to make sure every student is involved, make sure they are all paying attention, and to give them a chance to earn an actual participation grade. So I use participation cards. It's a random selection with students' names on it. I will call on them. Once they're called on, their card goes into a separate pile. And then at that time, they won't get called on again until the rest of the class has had their turn. So usually I use this for checking the do now and just checking classwork. So it's always something that they should have complete. If they use their time wisely, it should be completed. So they shouldn't feel like they're being put on the spot in any way. Basically, if they show effort, they get 10 points. If they don't show effort or they're not prepared, they get 5 points or 0 points. Then there's also a rubric score, which I will be using for breakout rooms and online whiteboards. And basically, all 3 of these items are pretty much set up the same way. Every 10 turns, points will be totaled and will count as a classwork grade. So they have a maximum of 10 points per turn. So every 10 turns, I'll put it in as a classwork grade. If it's the participation cards, it will be listed as participation cards. If it is a rubric score, it will be listed as a participation rubric score. Breakout rooms and online whiteboards for the rubric have a very similar rubric, so they will be combined together in terms of their 10 opportunities to earn 10 points. So they will be combined for a grade. So they have an opportunity to get at least 2 participation grades factored into their classwork this year. And that is through the cards and then through the rubric. little more information. I'm not going to read everything here because I will be sharing it with you, but the gist of it is if they make an effort, whether they have the right answer or not, they have the chance to get 10 points. So they're not just taking a guess, they're able to defend their answer, and they're ready when I call on them. So I don't have to keep saying their name to find out if they are actually sitting at the computer. 5 points, again, correct or incorrect answer. They can probably explain what they did, but not so much how they did it or why they did it. Maybe they just like didn't know how to do it, so they took their best guess. I will give partial credit for that. If they don't understand the problem at all and they didn't have an answer at all, but then they respond to me prompting them and trying to help guide them through the question or the problem, then they can still earn 5 points at that time. 0 points, the only way to do that is that they're not ready to be called on, they're not at their computer, they never respond, or they refuse to answer when I try to help them. So I will try to help them if they don't have an answer, but if they refuse to answer or say blatantly that they pass, I have no choice but to give them a 0. So it's random selection again, and after 10 turns, it will be added together to count as a grade out of 100% for grading for the classwork category. Our rubrics pretty much is just to make sure that students are actively participating. There are times when I go into breakout rooms to check on groups that they are sitting in complete silence. That defeats the whole purpose. If I wanted them to work independently, I would keep them in the main room with me and just let them work and then ask questions as needed. But I'm putting them in smaller groups to give them a chance to talk to each other, to discuss the math, to check each other's answers and work, and to give them a chance to collaborate with their peers. And quite frankly, it gives them a break from listening to me the whole time, which can get very boring. And I know that they will start tuning me out if class is structured that way every day. So basically, they earn 10 points. If I enter their room to check on them, it should be obvious to me that they're working on math. I shouldn't have to ask if they're working or ask if they need help. It should just be obvious. They should be talking about the math, using the chat, sharing their screen and presenting information to help a peer, and just in general sharing answers. Their camera does not have to be on. We do prefer that the video is on. I think it makes it easier for students to talk to one another, but it's not mandatory. As long as I hear them talking or see them working in the chat and working together, they can, individually, they can earn 10 points. If 3 out of 4 students are working together and that 4th student is sitting there silence, the 3 students will earn 10 and that 4th student will earn something else on their rubric. So 5 points, they may or may not use the mic and chat. They might be working together occasionally and comparing answers, but basically they're pretty much working partially together. They only ask each other if they need help. They're not really discussing the math when they're checking each other's answers. It might just be, well, this is what I got. Okay, we agree. All right, let's do the next one. And that with no discussion. So they pretty much will tell me that they're working independently and checking in occasionally. So that would get a student 5 points. 0 points would be minimal or no evidence that they're working on math. If their camera is off, they might not respond when I ask them if they need any help. They might not be answering questions in the chat or responding to the mic. They're probably not responding to their peers if certain students are trying to participate. And when I come in and I'm trying to get their attention, if there's a significant delay, then I'm going to assume that they are not at their computer, that they have walked away and they're not actually working on math or doing math at that time. So if that happens, they will earn a 0 for that session. Online whiteboards. We use online whiteboards that only I can see. So students cannot see each other's whiteboard. They can see their own whiteboard. They can see my whiteboard to see how I'm doing the problem. So what I've had happen in the past is some students are actively using the whiteboard, participating, doing a great job. Whether they get it right or not, I'm not concerned with. I want to be able to see their math work in the moment so that I know how that I can help them. So some students are leaving their boards completely blank. I don't know if they're working. Some of them say they're doing it in a notebook. The requirement will be moving forward that they actually use the whiteboard. I don't know how to help them if I can't see the mistakes that they're making. And since it's private, there's really no reason for them not to use the whiteboard. I know it can be a little annoying to write with a trackpad, but we don't use them every day. So I am asking that they do that. If they are completely stuck and they have no idea how to do it, they can write the word help on their board so that I see it, but nobody else knows. And then I will go over the problem with any students that say that. I'll do it for the whole class and tell other students to just keep working. If they feel like they just need a little hint to get started, they can write the word hint on their whiteboard. And that way, when I see it, I might just maybe tell them, say out loud how to get started on the problem, or maybe I'll do the beginning of the problem and then have them finish it, to kind of guide them through it. Copying the problem with no other work is not enough to get 10 points. So if they just copy the problem and then sit there and leave it blank and claim, oh, well, I just didn't know how to do it, that's unacceptable for 10 points, because they could be using the opportunity to write help or hint, and then I will help them to the best of my ability without anybody knowing they're getting the help, that they've asked for help. 5 points, they have the problem copied, but they have minimal or no work, and they're not asking for help or hints when they're stuck. So they copy the problem and they're just sitting there at that point. And then 0 points, they have no work attempt. So there's nothing on their board. They're not copying the problem. They're not trying to solve the problem. And it appears that they're not even sitting at the computer. Now, with their camera on, I can't prove that, but if they're not writing on their whiteboard and actually trying to do the math, that's the assumption I'm going to have to make, that they are not participating actively. They're not, especially if I say their name at some point, and they don't respond by writing something on their whiteboard to show me that they are actually there, or using the chat feature, or turning their mic on and letting me know that they're present. That's our online whiteboards. So that is our participation. I'm going to move on to late assignments. If students turn in an assignment late, I don't think it's fair that they get an A when other students have taken the time to do it on time. So if it is within a week late, and by a week, I mean a calendar week. So if it's due on a Friday, it has to be turned in by the following Friday in order to be considered 1 week late. After that Friday, if they turn it in that Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, it will be considered more than a week late. So that at that point, they can earn a maximum of 85. Okay, so basically it's 15 points off of whatever grade they have earned. So if they earn a 92, they would lose 15 points and they would get a 77 due to the late policy. If it's more than a week late, then the maximum grade is a 70. So that translates to 30 points off of their earned grade. So in the same example, if they had a 92, but it was more than a week late, it would bring them down to a 62. In my opinion, it's just not fair for the students that made it a point to get work turned in on time, that they can get an A, and then students can turn it in basically whenever they feel like it and still have the opportunity to get the same grade. We're all, I'm sure you all are held to deadlines. Teachers are held to deadlines. That's just the reality of life these days, always has been in the adult world. And by 8th grade, students need to be held to that same standard. Now, if lateness is due to a technology issue, please email me. If you email me, there will be no penalty as long as the work is then submitted within 3 days of the due date. So your internet goes out, you had a power outage due to a major storm, the Chromebook wasn't working and they couldn't access the work. Send me an email on the day that it's due. I'll give them a 3-day extension, and hopefully that will give you time to fix whatever the problem is, or give them time to maybe go over to another family member's house or visit the free library and use their computer to get the work done. So there will be some flexibility there due to the virtual learning. That about wraps up the math information. I am going to do just a brief summary for advisory. So if you are in section 811, I do ask that you watch the video to the end. Sections 809 and 810, if you want to hear the information, you can. Some of it applies to all advisories, but this is specific to 811, some of it. So, at this point, as I tell the students, you are free to go. But if you have any questions at any time, please make sure to email me at my email, and I will be getting back to you and monitoring email daily. Okay, so for advisory, I did say I'm the advisor for section 811. Same for communication. The best way to reach me is through email. We do have an 811 advisory page in addition to our math page. This is the Google Classroom code to add yourself to that classroom if you're not already part of it. And this is our dojo link, Class Dojo link, to sign up for our class if you have not already joined Class Dojo. So Class Dojo will be the primary way I communicate with parents in terms of sending announcements out so that you know what's going on either in math or in the school in general. High school information will be posted there. So Class Dojo is very important because usually if I'm directing an announcement at the parents, it will be sent via Class Dojo. If I'm directing it at the students and you still want access to it, then you should join Google Classroom in addition, because the information will be there as well. It just will be phrased in a way that makes sense to the students. So these are both. So by the end of the video, hopefully you have signed up or will sign up for 3 classrooms just for me. one Google Classroom for advisory, one Class Dojo for advisory, and then also the Google Classroom for math class. That is the codes for that. And the last thing I just want to touch on is the high school selection process has started. So Ms. Travakis is the 8th grade counselor. That is her email. You can feel free to email her with any questions or concerns that you have about the process, about what schools you think might be a good fit for your child if you're not sure of how to navigate the process. And she also will have parent information sessions that are coming soon. It will be shared on Class Dojo when that information is available. The sessions are for general information, so it's not for you to discuss your individual child. It will be for the purpose of just sharing the information about how the process works, what schools are available, just more of a general sense and how to move forward. If you want to discuss your child, again, just send Ms. Travakis an email and she can schedule an appointment with you. These general sessions will also have interpreters available. So those of you that are not as fluent or proficient with the English language, you don't have to worry about that. She has a whole list that I've seen in the making right now of every possible language that our students speak will be offered. So one language will be offered per session. And then she will have other sessions that any parent can attend. So if you do speak English, you can just attend any of those sessions. But if you need the help of an interpreter, then she will have sessions offered for Russian speakers, Uzbek speakers, and so on. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming soon on Class Dojo. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for me. So I'm going to just put that page back up. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please email me, reach out to me at any time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. This obviously is not ideal, but I can say that the students have responded very well to this process so far. So it's just a matter of making sure they stay engaged and that they are actively involved in their learning. So please just talk to them about math class and all of their classes in general every day, like you would if they were going to school. Because I think if they know you're checking in with them, they will be more likely to pay attention, to do their work, and to put forth their best effort. And obviously, we all want the best for them. And the more time they spend out of school not really showing full effort, it will have an impact on their future. And of course, 8th graders, they don't really see that. So it's our job to make sure that they are staying on top of things because we know the impact that it could have down the line. So please feel free to email me anytime. I look forward to working with you this year. So far, I'm thoroughly enjoying all 3 of my classes. A lot of great kids in the class, and they are participating well. So I'm looking forward to a good year virtually, and even more so, I'm looking forward to meeting your children in person. So that will be fun if we can get to that point. All right. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope I've answered some of your questions. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Otherwise, let's just have a great 8th grade year. Thank you.